What's up, everybody? Eric Mashinsky, Gold Investment Letter, Sunday afternoon, February 5th. Hope everybody's having a great weekend, and I wanted to talk about this coming week. And one of the comments, not really questions, but I think it's important to address it. One of the comments that's come up few times in the last couple of days of trading this week was mostly from newer people, but also from one, premium member who was planning on buying more Phenom resources. And the stock was up 30% last week on some good volume. And you can look back in your emails and see what I was saying about it, spelled out some more, elaborate data and information about the company and really about vanadium, vanadium versus lithium, and why I'm so bullish on this. And it's just not very well known. It's not very well known in very high circles that I've been actually educating people on vanadium. And the more that they end up doing their own homework and circle back with me on their own, they're as fascinated as I am that, for example, like the US government is going to need to secure some of these supply sources of vanadium, or we're screwed. 70% comes from Russia and China, primarily China. They don't share very much. I had a discussion with someone, I respect his opinion, but he was mentioning that he thought China was going to play nice with a lot of the commodities and start to, share supply, and that the prices would come back down to earth. And I don't know. I don't see that happening with things like vanadium or critical metals or rare metals. I don't think they're playing nice at all. I mean, I think this is a war. We are at war already. We saw it with the balloon getting shot down. We saw it with there's a world war going on. We saw the Nord Stream get blown up. You've got Russia at war with Ukraine. The big one to me has always been, I've said this since last year, I'm watching Taiwan. That's going to be a big deal. And I think it's just a matter of time before that hits and China makes a move. Could still be a year or two, could be next week for all we know. I don't know, but I know that that's going to just escalate things further. And, we're moving into a new world anyway. So war, no war, all the vanadium opened up in the world is not enough to meet the demand that is coming for solid state batteries and for redox flow batteries. And then again, God forbid, what we've been looking at and saying is coming and is true are electric vehicle battery applications that fully charge. If you can fully charge a Tesla in 30 seconds and there's no flammability and it's twice the distance and it's half the cost, are you gonna, Elon's not a stupid guy, but Tesla doesn't even matter. There's so many car companies that are scrambling to get supply for their lithium and for their nickel and for their cobalt and for their copper and for their graphite and for their manganese and for whatever combination they decide to put these EVs in. So I just want to set that tone, but what I want to talk about are the comments that people missed it, okay? And initially, my reaction is like, of course, this is what's coming out now, but look, I get it. The stock's up 30%. People think, I should have acted. Eric was saying this for a while and I should have done something. I was gonna, and I just didn't. Just bear with me a second. I want to try to give you some perspective that I think is going to be vitally important for everybody. It was and has been and is for me in terms of overall investment returns. Any of you that are doing your own thing or managing money on behalf of others, when to buy is tough, but when to sell and how to sell is the toughest part of this business. And so I've made a living and a career out of studying capital markets. I'm a student until the day I die. That's fundamental analysis and research, technical analysis and research. And I would put the third leg that is really become honestly like a at least equal leg of the stool to those is investor psychology and how to use that to my advantage versus the emotion that I can see and the volatility that I can see and the consensus that I can see in the marketplace. So just to give you a few tips, like on some of the details to just get to the bread and butter of what Phenom has right now. Let me get the screen share up here. All righty, there we go. Okay. So what I want to talk about, let's see what we've got. First and foremost, the vanadium price. Okay, so the vanadium price has been quietly, climbing. Here we are right here, $9.50 a pound in Europe. Okay, so let's look at the 1 year chart and go back to around like, October 16th or so. Okay, and then we look at that move. The move is over 30%. It's been over 30% in the price of vanadium V2O5, vanadium pentoxide, 98%. There's numbers for China and things that are separate. I use Europe. That's what I tend to look at. And then we've got a 30% move in the price of, I wanted to pull up the daily chart first. Hold on one second. So let's look at and I'm pulling up the US number because we're getting a lot more volume in the US now. I'm a US investor. Vanadium is priced in dollars. And, a lot of times it can get a little confusing, perhaps for some of you that are in the States. And I'm putting this, symbol .V or whatever. Typically, I price things on the Canadian side and then equate it back on the OTC side in US dollars, which is basically US dollars to Canadian dollars. You multiply by about 1.33 right now. And then if you're going Canadian into US equivalent, it's about 0.75, which you'll see here. But so let's look at this. We've had a pop last week of, over about 30%. 30% in the price. Let me just circle this for you guys so you can see it. So we started the week off somewhere right, around here, 28.5 or so on the US market, and closed at 36.7. So let's just do the official math. And yeah, 30% almost on the nose. But here's the thing. So what have we done since that October time frame? All right, where have we really gone? So here's another example of what I pulled up before. Okay, and yeah, so let's look at this. You're looking at 27 cents is where we were October 16th when I pointed to vanadium right here in October, trading at 730. It was lower than that a little bit, but that not much. This was close to the low, 7.2, but same thing. So we've gone up over 30% in the price of vanadium pentoxide since October 16th. Phenom Resources has been dead and flat, building a base. I love to see these actually. This is getting a lot of the weak sisters, as we like to call them, out. A little bit of shaking of the trees down here. We did a financing and that brought it down a little bit too, but we kept it very small, very low dilution. And but 27 cents versus 28.5. I mean, we've had about a 30 to 35% move in the price of Phenom Resources since the bottom of vanadium prices in October. What I wanted to bring up then is, now let's look at just the size of what we know we have for Phenom. This is really important, but I think that what's going to happen is a lot of investors, even those of us that have been in the metals and mining space, probably we're most susceptible to underestimating the size and the scope and the magnitude and the length of the next bull move in the mining equities, okay, and in the metal prices themselves. Why is that? Because we've been disappointed a lot. You know, we thought these narratives that are actually now starting to come to light to big money, that is generalist money that I speak with, family offices and other fund managers. For example, I was in the Caymans at the Real Vision crypto conference a couple months ago, and speaking with very large individual investors, a family office, a fund manager that trades futures and algorithms and stuff, and doesn't they're not a fund manager that's picking stocks or anything. But three of them mentioned to me, I have not been in that space. When I mentioned that I wrote the gold investment letter, they're like, yeah, I actually just bought I bought some copper via some copper stocks. I wanted exposure to a copper mine. I think commodities are finally ready to go. I've been looking at ideas. I'm going to sign up for your letter right now, type of thing. I haven't heard that in years and years and years and years. That's a great sign, by the way. But that's because they're not jaded like, a bunch of us, a bunch of you. I'm not jaded. I feel great, but I'm excited about what we have because, it's important to refresh, not the big thing too, talking about investor psychology. It's worth bringing up. It's just a reminder to a lot of you. Recency bias is a big thing. We tend to think that what happened in the most recent past is going to continue in the near future, or be very similar to that. And that's in anything in life, a relationship, a price of an investment, an environment, geopolitically, whatever it is, we have recency bias as humans. And that's why I talk about sometimes I talk to people. I don't think I wrote it in this letter. I wrote it in one of the crypto things where I said, people that, and it's the same here, for those of you that are like, well, yeah, I basically, I've been into gold stocks. I'm a gold bug. I'm not a gold bug, by the way. I wanted to make that clear again. I love clarifying the fact I'm a gold bull. I'm not a bug that gets squashed on a windshield. Sorry, not my thing. And I will turn into a gold bear, maybe at some point. It serves a certain purpose that to me is about defense and stability and maintaining purchasing power and a true store of value against what is happening in the world, which is a debasement of currencies everywhere, including in the United States. So I'm not looking at becoming bearish on gold anytime soon, but I also have realistic expectations about what it's supposed to do with its performance. I mean, I'm exceptionally satisfied that over the course of the last 12 to 15 months, when stocks hit highs, crypto hit highs back in 2021 in the fourth quarter, and I was rolling over enormous profits and returns in, say, some of the smaller altcoins, or even in my Bitcoin at 60 some thousands, Ethereum at 4,000 or whatever, and rolling a large chunk. I probably put 50% in. Well, I mean, I don't know. I took it in two chunks, really. It was the spring of 2021. Then in the November timeframe, I think I put a bit more percentage-wise into the mining companies and cash and and gold. But you're talking 50% of the proceeds, certainly from the April moves. I put it in physical gold. And so, what's the point of that? Well, I did an interview with Raul Paul from Real Vision like 1 year ago in February of 2022. And we talked about this, and it's like the crypto people have the narrative wrong as well. I'm not in Bitcoin for a store of value, or, I mean, it's been referenced to digital gold. And I think it's because people, first of all, so Satoshi Nakamoto did model Bitcoin after the strong components of why gold is actually money. It actually is money now, whether the US government or anybody in the world decides to have a gold standard, which had its own flaws as well. It was much better for us than not having one at all, where they can print endless amounts of money with no repercussions. And now it's become a commonality. But my point was, the money that I put into gold, I told friends, I told everybody who would listen, gold is the safest place. I still feel this way right this moment. Gold is the safest place for my money on planet Earth. Safer than bonds, safer than any fiat currency. I mean, safer than treasuries. It doesn't, it's the safest place for money, for maintaining my purchasing power of goods and services in the future, for what I put out there in energy and get as time put out in income today, and what I'll be able to buy tomorrow. Gold's the best. Over 50 years, it's returned 50 times. And that's about 9.7, between 9.5% and 10% per year. Right now, it's closer to 10% compound annual growth rate since 1971, which really is when things changed in the clip of the gold standard. The gold link occurred in the US. But let's get back to this. What I'm talking about with recency bias is that I mentioned this with the crypto people who, that are they're into it. Maybe this is their first time through this like crazy bear market where everybody gets slaughtered, and you just get this like power saw that comes through and chops the leg off and rips the neck off of like 70% of the people that are speculating in the space. The over leveraged, everything just get hatcheted. And then there's the survivors, and the survivors are strong hands. And with the limited supply, and actually the deflationary supply, which usually happens around cyclical activity in crypto, around the halving event every 4 years, where half of the new supply of tokens gets taken out of the market. And it's really pretty simple. I mean, I haven't seen this change. I've been through several of these now. And anyway, so I'm looking at that, and in that crypto letter, this is just an example of what I really see as relevant here with Phenom and with all of our metals and mining stocks. So bear with me 1 second. And you have the people that I've been putting out recommendations, in the crypto Phenom letter, and talking about swing trades, kind of keeping a leash on things because things were pretty nasty as recently as 2 months ago. FTX blowing up, companies blowing up everywhere, fraud, the overhang of potential Genesis bankruptcy. That's got the Winklevoss twins up in arms. You've got DCG, Digital Currency Group, which is the biggest player around in the space, with crypto trusts and ETFs and everything. And they're the owner of Genesis. Genesis might need to go bankrupt, which could cause forced selling from one of the largest crypto holders on planet Earth. So that is a real thing. I mean, Genesis filed already, but with all of that hanging over, when Bitcoin stopped going down, this is also just something that, as a trader and a market speculator, I'm so glad that when I started in the business in the late 90s, I did so where the only tools we really had, if we even had a Quotron, was to watch the stock trade. A little yellow block on an old Mac, bid offer volume. You could see like one stock at a time, but there were any details, or watch the screen with the Quotron, and basically you'd get a feel for it. I don't even remember, we didn't have the internet, so there's no pulling up stockcharts.com until you're into the 2000s, right? So I'm super happy and very grateful for the fact that that's when I started in the business, because that's actually what ends up being a part of when I call my bottoms, or I can see things in the activity and the action, the way the behavior is happening in any commodity stock or crypto or whatever. But anyway, those folks, and I've put it out here too with a recent update on Bitcoin for all of you at GIL who I have been talking to. I didn't really say much anytime recently, but I thought it was appropriate to put out an update. And it's called, there's a YouTube video, New Millionaires Are Made or Born in Bear Markets. And I was very bullish in that thing, and that would just publish less than a month ago. That was like January 9th. And just days before it, before that, the week before that, and after that, with the crypto letter and stuff. And in that video, I not only was mentioning, load up, I started loading up on more BTC ETH. I had already said I put my auto purchases back on in the summer. So, the prices of those favorite coins and tokens has gone down since then, which actually I wanted, because I'm not putting these crazy amounts in. I'm auto accumulating and did it all the way down. The longer it lasts, the lower it goes, the more I get. And there's going to come a point, not yet, where I turn those auto purchases of all these tokens off. But what I also do is there are times when I'm getting signals that they're about to go up, or, that there's just a buying opportunity and or a crash. And then I find some cash and I put more of a chunk to work in my favorite stuff. And what I said on January 9th was there were 5 tokens that I really, really like, that I had said, and I talked about it before in the crypto letter, but I said, I'm going in deep. I went in deep already. I had moved money. I was going to wait, because of all this going on in the market. But I think I didn't come out and say that Bitcoin's about to rip, 30% like it has, or 40% since the beginning of January, which is crazy. But I was just thinking this might be the worst of it, because of the way that people are giving up, apathy, disgust, tons of fear across the board. Seeing that with a lot of even the crypto thought leaders who were throwing in the towel after being in the business forever. So anyway, those are all those different types of signs. And what I had said to them in this write-up, I think it was late last night or the night before, where the discussions that I have with you guys or with those crypto folks, where the answer to me, I said, hopefully, a decent amount of you have been paying attention still to crypto, haven't lost faith and focus, and actually have been listening to some of my ideas and picks and putting some money to work. Because I was going through the list, and it's like, in 30 days to 3 weeks to the beginning of the year, not even 5 weeks. I don't know. It's the worst one is up 50, 60%. And, others have well over doubled. There's not even close to a loser on the list. Things are flying. They've been flying. And that's just the stuff that I highlighted. So, but then we come back into this question of like, oh, I missed it. I missed the bottom. So what do we do there? But the point being with all of that was that when I have talked to, and that's prior to this run off the loads of crypto, and then even now or going forward, if you can buy, if there's one thing that I could get across to everybody that I've learned for me to improve your odds, to actually make money as an investor, instead of either losing money or making it and then giving it all back. But the fact is that it's easy to talk about buying when there's blood in the streets and all this stuff, but how easy is it for people to do it? I find that it's very difficult for a lot of people to do it. I'm ruthless. I could give a shit. I will buy when the sky is falling and everybody tells me that I'm a moron and an idiot and I'm crazy and you don't know what you're talking about. I don't care. Like, if I have conviction, okay? But that's been through training of years and years and years, of just not letting my emotions like rule the day, and actually utilizing the opposite of the emotion extremes to do my bidding. And when I talk to people here like you right now, or those crypto folks, and I say, have you been adding anything? Have you been adding? The most important thing before I say that, the most important thing I would say that I've learned is, if you can train yourself to deploy capital on some level and be active and buy, when things are way, way down off of highs, low, off of their highs from a previous bull market, they're in a bear market. You've been getting your ass kicked. You don't know if it's over. That's the problem, is people keep wanting to wait for lower prices. Well, at some point, something like what just happened with Bitcoin happens. There is no more lower prices. You're never going to see that again. You're waiting for 12,000, 11, 10,000. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's not likely. I think sayonara. You're waiting for something that's not going to happen. And then the fear I have is like a letter writer that cares about the returns of people that actually like listen to me and value my opinion is I don't want to see all of my people plowing in again at 38,000, 48,000, 58,000 on Bitcoin because they can't stand it anymore, that it's going up so much and it's in the news when I've been pounding them, and talking about it very consistently, but then ramping up the jargon about getting more aggressive. I mean, you have to pace yourself and time yourself, but if you can buy in bear markets in like an area, like around, like be like an artist on this big page and you're with the canvas, okay? If you can buy somewhere in the vicinity of the lows, you're never gonna pick the low. I can bet there's like probably 40 some thousand people that are on this list. We have very high open rates. So I don't know. I mean, you're definitely looking at 10, 15, whatever thousand people that are going to read the email. Let's call it GDXJ. Maybe one person bought within like 0.5% of the lows in the bear market in October. And that was probably me. So it's not easy to do, but that's also because I didn't care about getting the bottom. I was just looking at, this is cheap. It's in the area, just like when you get a bull and like a peak and something going parabolic, and it's like, wow, this is like a bubble. How high is it going to go? The greed starts coming up. You're starting to, tabulate out. If it goes a little higher, I'm going to be living on the beach in Hawaii with a mansion, and I only need another this much remove. That stuff is very deceptive too. And, just start feeding that market. There's somebody who told me that, maybe it was Doug Casey who initially said it. I heard it from Frank Justra. I always like that analogy of with selling and with a market cycle top. When the ducks and the geese are quacking, start feeding the ducks, and that's it. Start feeding the ducks, and you don't do everything all at once, and you don't put that type of pressure on yourself. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up because I said to the crypto people, when you tell me, well, I'm still holding on to what I had before, these are people that didn't own enough in crypto in the first place and got in later. Even some of it, a lot of it was big profits from our crypto special report. If they got in earlier and they gave it back, probably a lot of it, but doesn't seem like super serious money for a lot of people, because that takes some cycles. I mean, it did for me when I recommended Bitcoin here in 2016 under $500 of Bitcoin. I didn't have any real money in it. It took me time to get, I guess you could call it comfortable with like putting real money at risk. So I get that. But then this happens and it's another opportunity, to like have been learning this whole time, to be able to better understand the fact that this is not going away. All this bullshit FUD, the government's going to ban it. Binance, the biggest crypto exchange in the world, is going to go bankrupt. They processed $22 trillion in transactions last year. They've got 70% of the market and they're going bankrupt. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is the type of stuff that I like to see when I'm basically saying this is getting out of hand. The government can't stop it, by the way. But anyway, that's crypto. But when I look at when people come back to me, what I feel is I want to take a defibrillator, a mobile defibrillator, put it on their chest and shock them into, that's the mentality of a loser. Oh, you're still holding on to the gold you got? and the silver that you bought 15 years ago, and oh, you bought some McEwen mining at the equivalent of $15, you're only down 50% now, but you're still holding, you still got it. Are you kidding me? You sell that shit if that's how you think. You're lazy. That is a lazy thought. Either you are a believer in this stuff, and you should be the one to be one of the people in the mining space, those of you that have been around, to understand that our day has been coming, and the longer that it has been drawn out, the closer it is to happening. Our theses about, precious metals and the value thereof and the reasons to own those not only haven't changed, they've grown before our very eyes. But because the price movements haven't really kicked in, especially for the mining stocks, people give up, or they just stop, believing in the whole thing. You look at this stuff with all the EV and the electrification of the world and batteries and cars. And I still remember, I'm going to show you this, guys. So I'm going to go back to this slide, which is about the size of the uranium. And I'll just say it then real quick, actually. So you've got 400 million pounds that was found in February of 19 at a PEA level, which is also grown by over 50% from recent drilling. But let's look at two things. So vanadium, Phenom Resources is up about 30%. The price of vanadium is up about 30%. There's been no leverage in the stock whatsoever for moving this thing forward to a later stage, to more drilling, to the gold asset that we have below the thing that's God knows how big. And so when you see, okay, we've had under $10 million added to the market cap. But if you look at $2 per pound of increase since October in the vanadium price, with just the 400 million pounds we know we have, that's an $800 million in situ, in the ground value of a metal that is climbing. And I think nowhere near even getting started. A multi-year, possibly multi-decade climb in price and squeeze in demand without enough supply. If you add what we drilled this last year or so, and probably added at least 50% or more to the size of that, that'll get updated. We're indicated and inferred, there's different levels to this stuff too, but it's there, right? It's the highest grade, and there are higher grade vanadium assets that are out there, but this is big. It's the biggest in North America. It's at surface, okay? And you're talking about, if we have, 600 to 700 million pounds there, which I believe we do, then you're talking about, we've added like $300-400 million of vanadium in the ground on top of this, which is like, on top of the 800 million increase. Throw that on top of there. None of that's getting value, okay? None of it. And that's why when you look at this situation, here's why this thing is going way, way, way higher. So what did Phenom Resources, this is a monthly chart that goes back 10 years, okay? So this, I'll show you here. This was a shell company. There was nothing there. They bought the option to the Carlin vanadium asset in 2017, earlier in 17. And that meant that they had to spend, millions in payments and millions in actual drilling. And we do know now, I'll go back to this, that, they've spent over, let's see here, I think it's in a clip here, but they've spent over, the last 4 years, $16 million we've spent, and we only have a $25-30 million market cap. It's so crazy. and I'll talk a little bit about this slide, the vanadium advantage in the energy sector before I stop at the end. But going back to this chart, this is important. Did you miss it? Or is this thing just getting started? I mean, here's where we got involved. By we, I mean that the elite members, maybe some premium, this was just coming out of that really bad bear market that lasted for 4 years into the beginning of 2016. We had a reprieve in the metals and mining stocks and gold and silver and things for about 7 months. And then, you know, from there for the next over a year, we were back to dead in the markets. So we get to October, November of 2017. And right here, you see this big bump in volume, and you see this pricing, which is around 14 cents Canadian. This is the US price, so call it 14 cents Canadian. GIL stepped in and led a round of financing. So that was about here, this in the US side, I'll just do the math. Yeah, it was about a dime. So, you know, a dime a share. And I believe we raised like 750,000, of which, you know, maybe 600 or so, or 550 or 650 was myself and a group of our members. And we got so it was 24 cents or 14 cents Canadian with a 24-cent 5-year warrant, full warrants. And that was right before, and this took 7 months, guys, 7 months is what this took. Here, let me show you a little something that was very, very fun. And that was this move right here. And this is actually the Canadian symbol. So good. Those are the terms we did it on. This is a monthly chart, so it could have been anywhere in those bars. But, you know, so this was based on, and that means that we were up 13 times our money. We had a 4-month lockup, so that was already gone, all free trading, and bought the crap out of this thing in the open market. I was very excited about vanadium then. And this is when the lithium ion battery area, the cobalts, all that stuff started popping, you know, in Canada, and getting everybody's attention about this future wave of things that were supposed to be happening, which at that point, I didn't really believe necessarily, unless we saw some real traction in the EV space. We didn't really know very much at all. And I also remember very clearly, guys, I'm sure some of you do too, if you look back at some of the presentations that were sent to you from any companies that were drilling for cobalt or lithium or whatever, vanadium really was not on a lot of radars then, even less than today. But just call it the lithium plays, the nickel plays, whatever. When they put it in their deck about the adoption curve in the EVs, I could have swore, I mean, my memory got jacked up the last couple of years, but I can pretty much tell you, I do remember, it's like imprinted on my brain that I just kept recalling the similarity in, it didn't matter about the metal. Anybody who was referring to that curve, that adoption curve, they were all pointing to around 2024, you know, 2024, 2025 at the latest, when there was going to be an apex. Not enough nickel, not enough cobalt, not enough lithium, not enough anything. Graphite, manganese, copper, gold, vanadium, doesn't matter. Silver, everything was hitting this cross point. If the adoption of the EVs continued like they were suggesting, and they actually have, which is very, very huge to pay attention to. Because if those were really weak, this would get kicked out years. People would be making excuses. But if anything, I think a lot of the adoption has been actually better than a lot of these groups and their projections. But so we're up 11 times our money on the warrant, 24 cents to $2, 13 times on the common stock. for combined, up to 23, 24 times your money in 7 months. That means if you bought it at the placement or in the market at that, in the placement, and then sold it like at the top, at $2. I mean, I don't think anybody did that with the whole position, but it gives you a lot of room for error, trust me, and you can make a fortune. And that's what we're in this business for, and that's why we're in the miners. But at that time, you got to realize this was a 43-101 option that had millions of dollars of payments and drilling to move it forward. Didn't even own the thing yet. Now they've grown it, paid all their obligations. Phenom Resources just paid $1 million in July or June. The last payment on the project. They've spent 16 million on it. They own it outright 100%. Okay, that's a big deal. That's a PEA stage versus a 43-101 option. And this thing went from 14 cents to $2 back then. And part of that was because of the move up in the vanadium price, with some things that China was doing. And it even got to the point where you saw the price end up, it like hit almost $2 and then came right back down to $1 quickly. And it was in this mid ones during the summer. I still remember that. And then it hit the peak of 2, and that was in September of 18, when there was a law change with China that was going into effect. That was actually also the peak of the market. But vanadium made it well into over $30 a pound. And after that, this is where we see one of these bear cycles, and this deal was dead. Vanadium went all the way back down to $4, and Phenom went to back to 14 cents. I mean, it was way, way, way down. But let's look at then where we step back in on this thing. My timing has not been bad at all. But before I do that, let's just take a peek at this, which is we are building this beauty. Oh my gosh. Look at this. Look at this. Can you guys see this? We are either going to do one of these or one of these out of here. It's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Your clock is ticking and ticking and ticking. And this is a monthly chart, but it could go through here in February. And I'll be watching that, and I'll be announcing a bull flag, which is a long-term bull flag, which are the more powerful ones. Higher lows, these higher lows along the way, and this lower high. I love this pattern. I love it. I've made a lot of money on the breakouts, and I've saved a lot of money on the breakdowns. And if we broke down decisively from this bull flag, I would loosen up. I wouldn't be as bullish on Phenom. I'm not blinded by this stuff. It's my biggest position by far. But like I said, I'm here to help the company make sure that they're financed as long as this bull story is intact. But anyway, so the point being, it went to $2 where we didn't have the gold asset. I mean, there's been a lot of money spent on drilling there. We believe we've got this massive potential gold system run by Dave Matheson, who's found, I think, as much or more gold in the Carlin Trend and the Carlin Trend itself, with unique drilling suggestions of going deeper when it was not in vogue back in the 80s and 90s, and has found multiple districts in this in Nevada, much less just mines, and uses two analogies to what he thinks we've got below the Carlin vanadium deposit, and that is Gold Strike and Gold Quarry. You've heard me talk about this before. Gold Strike looks like it's going to end up being 100 million ounce gold deposit, obviously been in production for a while, owned by the big boys. And then Gold Quarry, also owned by the big boys, by Newmont, 50 million ounces. This isn't your mama's potential gold toy down there that we've got. This thing could be a monster, worth shit. The gold itself on a big discovery hole and a couple of follow-throughs could take it from 48 to 480. The vanadium price moving up when it's back over 10. back over 12, whatever, some positive news around that, and or just the spin out that we're going to get here, where you're going to have a pure vanadium, phenom vanadium, and phenom, gold, call it, which is also going to include a very sexy, earlier stage, but sexy copper asset in Arizona. And you get some of that for free. Who's going to sell it before the spin out? Probably won't happen until Q2, where it actually occurs and gets into our accounts. But just on the vanadium side, with what I'm looking at, 480 is, it's like, I'm not going to say it's going to happen for sure, but I mean, that's the type of thought that I have around a minimum price target for this stock, 10x from here. So, and look, I'm the only guy out here talking about it, but we don't need it to happen. That's the beauty of it. We don't need it to happen. When I say that vanadium is going to disrupt lithium ion batteries to take over the standard of electric vehicle batteries in that entire market. And, I made a comment on Twitter and somebody said, yeah, I said it beats lithium in every way, but he was like, well, the discharge rate is better in lithium, they last longer. He's right, but you still have to look at the whole picture, the cost, the life of the thing, the need for so much to be discharged from a lithium ion battery versus vanadium, self-replenishing. Look at this, recyclable, reusable, lifespan of 25 years, non-flammable, guys. This is one of the huge keys. It's way cheaper than lithium now because of the move that lithium had. Very scalable and charged and discharged at the same time. It's possible with a vanadium redox and or solid state battery. It's amazing. It holds more power. That means it can go further. And it can rapidly release large amounts of electricity, which is why it is the critical metal of choice for industrial scale battery metals. So we don't need it to even do anything in EVs. I just know it's going to. It's going to start being included. They've been testing lithium vanadium batteries now. So that stuff's coming. I don't even care, for it to happen, could take a decade, but once the narrative starts coming out that people actually learn about vanadium, number one, then start to think and look at what's happening and the possibilities of the car companies starting to gobble this shit up and testing new batteries, which we are talking with companies that have been doing just that for years out of Japan, that are charging their electric vehicle batteries in 30 seconds or less. Why are you going to let a car sit in your garage sucking up energy for 4 hours overnight and do it overnight because the government asked you to in California, when you could plug this thing in going faster than you would at a gas station, filling her up? Man, that's powerful stuff. I don't know. You tell me. Anyway, I'm just letting you guys know that I wanted to go through some of these slides and some of the mentality. I think that's about it for today. I just wanted to point out some facts about the fundamentals. I wanted to point out, any of you think you missed it or whatever. It's just it's like our monkey brain, gives us these thoughts of, it tries to keep us alive and security and, the caveman days are over. And I think a lot of the thoughts like that we have to deal with, that are, normal and natural, or even for example, something that we make a bunch of money on goes to a new high. And then we're like, wow, I made so much. It's becoming a way too big position. I got to take some profits. And then it hits, say, 100, whatever it is. And then peaks there and goes, it's at 82. And you bought it at 17. And then you think, well, I missed the top. When it goes back there, I'll sell some. Be an artist anywhere in the area, baby. That's still a massive gain. That's a 4.5x 17 to 82. Do you get what I'm saying? It takes a lot of pressure off of us as well to try to pick these miraculous prices every time. I don't care. I'm in the ballpark of some of these that do like work like that or better. It's wealth creation in a big way. So what I always suggest, this is the last thing I'll say. But this is all I mentioned the crypto stuff, but guys, what my message is this stuff is laying all over the mining sphere right now. It is the perfect opportunity. It is a critically time sensitive time to be planting seeds and moving money into freaking anything. Copper, gold, silver, vanadium, lithium, whatever. It doesn't, look, I mean, nickel, you know how much I like nickel and nickel stocks. The prices of these things are climbing. They're way up from the last, decade lows. And then especially the junior ones that are exploration companies or development companies, they're on their lows. So you've got these crazy rises like in nickel at 13. That environment versus at $8 for nickel companies is incredibly robust for profitability and motivation and capital to come in and start trying to play catch up to find more of these mines in the future, because everybody's screwed. Everybody's screwed. That's my other message. They're all going to come just like Mark Jarvis got Mitsubishi to take that 15% position for $8 million that valued Turnagain, that asset, at twice what the market cap of Giga was at the time and what it is right now, because it came back down because of how crappy the market is. They're all coming, all of them. I think everybody's going to wake up. It's going to seem like one day Toyota, Ford, Volkswagen, Tesla, whatever. I mean, this is just the car companies, but anybody that has a product that has a hard material is going to have some problems finding their supply beyond like 3 to 5 years from now. And they need to lock that stuff in a lot earlier, right? So I think they're all going to start waking up, and you're going to see somebody do what Mitsubishi did, and they're going to have to pay 3 or 4 times the valuation that Mitsubishi did if they're doing it like in Turnagain. And then, and then somebody's going to have to buy the company out completely at like 10 to 20 times where it is right now. Where I can see it as clear as day. And vanadium is even more important from a critical, homeland security standpoint. We're waiting on some of these grants, which are still possible, by the way. There's new ones coming out all the time. I mean, we're working on trying to educate and lobby some of the highest up people in the Department of Defense and Department of Energy, because a lot of these grants are going now to lithium companies. And we don't know how well they understand vanadium. And that's also where the opportunity is here, guys. Vanadium's like kind of still very new on the block. You ask people what a lithium ion battery is or what lithium is, and they know, most people know, even people on the street, because they wanted to buy it, an electric car or whatever. But vanadium is the spice. It's the heat. It's the heater. It is the superior metal. There's applications in so many different things that I've found out in my most recent research over the last 6 months. It's mind-blowing. And when you can take a stake in a deal like Phenom Resources, I'm going to be recommending, if things go half as well as I think that they're going to go, I'll be recommending loading the boat on Phenom, and I'll still be buying it at $1, because, we're looking at something like a $5, $10, $20, $30, $40 stock as potential here. So we'll see. It reminds me a little bit about Zenyatta Ventures, the first big hit the gold investment letter ever had, which is a graphite company. And I had to learn all about graphite because I was not familiar with differences in types of graphite, like flake and vein and hydrothermal and all that stuff. And it was early in a discovery, and I was the only letter writer talking about it. Some of you found me from that in 2012. I remember in August, I had very little following, just some of my clients that had come over from being a broker, and little people here and there. And then I did this write-up, and I found a way to draw people that were following a certain company by doing a press release, getting permission from the company, and writing it up on the blog, and then signing up. So people that started to see Zenyatta, which became the best performer in Canada then, after I had actually put it up as my top pick, August 2012. By July of 20, that was at 18 cents Canadian. And by July, it was $5. So, 20, 25 baggers, 10 baggers, these are not foreign to me. They happen. I mean, these are like, act like you've been in the end zone before, guys. All right. Have some confidence in what you do. And if you don't, and you just keep getting caught in the same, problem of getting sucked in when it's like things are hot and moving and everybody else is jumping in, and then you end up getting frustrated because later they come down and you have a bear cycle. These are cyclical markets. You got to play those to your advantage, or else you're one of the people that's putting money in my pocket. I want you to be a part of the group here that is putting money in your pocket, and we're taking it from Tom, Dick, and Harry, or the rest of the folks around the world, because it is a wealth move transfer back and forth. Where does the money go when the stock goes down? I don't know. I mean, it's like, it's all a game, but it's also how people can get, ahead. We have to take, I think taking risk is a very healthy thing to some degree for people, because, people that can't let go and that are always afraid of taking any risk, this whole world's a risk. There is no security. Your whole freaking breath can be gone in a second. You can be invested in anything that you think is safe, and it could blow up in your face. We've seen that over history, and it's hard to hide from all of it, right? So my theory is, okay, fine. And I'm also used to I've taken a lot of big losses. It doesn't matter, because I've had these winners that, dwarf them. You can only lose 100%, but did you ever make 400 times your money? 200 fold? 650x on your money? Those are some of my crypto wins, but I've had, over 100x in miners too, when you count the warrants. And I can tell you right now, last thing I'm going to say. So don't be, don't be one of the people that gets lulled into, as a mining investor, that right now gets lulled into this, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Everything's down, nothing's working. And please don't sell anything, but that's not good enough. That's what I was getting at with the defibrillator. So think about me right now over you, defibrillating you, shocking you to wake up and say, holy cow, I've got, you can go up the ladder and buy stuff like, Equinox Gold or some of the, GDXJ or whatever, do something like that if you want. But where I'm finding the real miracles are a lot of these companies that we're familiar with that are trading for sub, $5 million market caps with real projects. They're solvent. And then, some of these too, like, what's the risk of them going out of business when we are behind them? I'll fund them to last. I mean, a lot of them have very low burn rates. It's about the drilling and the moving forward and not diluting too much at the cheap prices that counts. But I didn't plan on this going this long, but I love this stuff. I hope you guys get a lot out of this video, and watch Phenom. Let's see what happens this week. Could it pull back? Maybe, but that's part of the key too, though, guys, is like, if you buy into something and then, so, if you saw it go up a lot and you're like, I've got bids in underneath and they were day orders, and then you go on with your life and you forget about it. And it does pull back and you miss it. Or it just, it's going to continue to go. It's going a lot higher. Okay. So what I always say in these cases is, like, if you don't have any, or you have a little position in something that you want to own and you want to participate in, but it's like going up, it's gone up recently or whatever. What I tend to do is I'll say, okay, say I want 100 grand ideally in something. Ideally, I'm willing to risk $100,000 in this sector, stock, whatever. And because ultimately I think it's going to turn into 500,000 to plus or whatever. I'll take half of that, or even a third minimum, but half of that, 33 to 50 grand, and I'm just going to buy it at the offer at the market to get something on the books, because I don't know, very clearly where that next like 30% move is. I'm not always, if I really want to own it, I'm going to buy some right there. But then I know that I've got the powder and the intention that if and when it does pull back, I only have a starter position on. Psychologically, that's a great way to go about things in my experience, because you really can't lose, because I've had a bunch of things that like they don't stop and they keep going. And I'm like, thank God I bought, a decent little position that has tripled in 2 weeks, or whatever. And so, or, then all of a sudden there's a bad market and this and that. Everybody's worried about, this and that with the stock. I mean, look, we are in the perfect paradox in metals and mining stocks and macro that you could ever ask for. It's the biggest opportunity I've ever seen in my career. It's more of like, not necessarily, I don't know how high, if they're going to go higher than everything else before, but it's the best opportunity in terms of risk reward. A lot of the high quality plays that we talk about, even if they are smaller in size, so they're naturally more risky and volatile, I don't see us losing a lot of money from here, but I see us gaining. We're going to make money. And the question is like, do we end up seeing the high end or mid end or whatever of what potentially could come, which is like extraordinary gains, extraordinary. Or do they disappoint and go halfway or on the low end, which are going to be still extraordinary gains? So, yeah, guys, look, I'm giving you these messages now because it's going to be really easy for everybody to act when things are running and up and the world is turning in. And this FOMO that I'm talking about, fear of missing out, by the actual, we're going to see it from governments, we're going to see it from automakers, we're going to see it from all kinds of different companies. They're all coming and calling me, and they're going to say, what can we do to get a piece of your mind there, Mr. Mashinsky? You have a very big position in this Carlin vanadium asset, and this is the Department of Defense, and we were trying to get ready to make some of the new school rocket technology to keep up with China and Russia. And then we're out of gas. We forgot. We don't have any vanadium. I mean, I jest, but that they'll be calling, think about it, they're calling you. He who owns, and I don't own Phenom, but I own a lot of the company. And I own other vanadium stocks. Like I talk about Largo, the producer. You can move up the chain to get some, it's time to get exposure to vanadium for sure. Now it's not, it doesn't have to be Phenom. It just so happens that Phenom is the one I'm betting the biggest on for many, many reasons. But, he who owns the metals and the hard assets, the minerals, the critical minerals, the rare earths, all these things, he who owns those things in the ground are going to be the kings of the world. That is another prediction of mine. Vanadium is going to disrupt lithium and take over, as I've never heard that before from anybody. And he who owns, keep your eye on the ball, guys. Like a lot of you, it's easy to get discouraged. Any of us can get discouraged or question whether we were just wrong or whatever after like a market like this. Like we've had a lot of other stuff going up, and then our gold and silver and the performance there over the last 2.5 years has been horrendous. So it's normal. I mean, I'm not saying this stuff to put you down if you've lost some confidence. I'm saying it to boost you up, to say you weren't wrong. It's just getting closer to when this stuff is going to manifest. You might as well get paid for your time as well. And the way that you do that is you add some more positions to things. Don't even worry about Phenom if that's not your thing. It's important, though, to do it in your metals and miners that you do have confidence in, or that you like the best, or whatever. Mine, I keep giving some of these out. And I also would tell you that the premium service is going to be popping again. It's already started. I'm actually doing phone calls with the longer term elite and premium members every day, Tuesday through Friday, for 3 hours. to catch up because my health is better and because I had been lax in offering value to you guys. And I'm here to make that up. And that means that I want to do a lot right now because of like there's a window here to make the most money. Okay, so if you're listening to this and this was compelling at all, please follow and like the YouTube. This YouTube channel is going to remain, and it's actually, I think, going to grow a lot. I'm going to be having guest speakers. I'm going to have my own podcast stuff, and then I'm going to have separate channels and separate websites for crypto and for what I call Phenom life, which is just, things about personally, overcoming obstacles, suffering, ceilings in life, breaking through, mastermind tactics, tools, things that have helped me, evolve as I've gotten older. I didn't have my first like nice apartment until I was 40 in Chicago. Before that was a studio I lived in for 8 years. Good neighborhood, had a pool on the roof, but it was a studio in my 30s. Before that, as a kid, I never wanted people to see my house. Always embarrassed. The last few years, I live in between, $10,000 and $70,000 a month, villas, penthouses, and all that stuff. Only to say that the reasons for that is because of a lot of the principles that I'm going to share, like on the Phenom Life, but that also make it here, and the changes that I've made in my investing decisions and style. A lot of you have seen that happen before your eyes, and I really truly appreciate all of you. If you've listened to this video until the end, if you're just a new person or you've been around for a while, I want you to know that I'm very grateful for sticking around and to even like listening to my musings and risking your hard-earned dollars in certain things that I've recommended, for hanging out when I was very sick and when I had strayed off into, really just zeroing in on crypto and turning off my phone basically, because I saw that as a one-time situation in life. But, so I underserved some of you guys, and you're my number one priority going forward. Okay. Because I want to give back to that loyalty, and a lot of you are friends now, and some of you I don't know, and there's so many interesting people that I've got on this list, so many smart people. A lot of you are smarter than I am, and wealthier than I am, but I just want to make sure that when you see something come in for me, that like it's noteworthy to look at it, and to pay attention to it, especially right now. Give me these next few weeks and months of your time when I come out with things. Take some actions on what I'm recommending. Give me 1 to 2 years on those investments. I'm going to fucking destroy everybody. Okay. Watch. And I want you to participate. I want to hear stories, after it's going to be tough to get me back on the phone again when this stuff is flying, because, that's when the things in life that matter are going to be taking up hopefully all of my time, with the Phenom Foundation and that Phenom Life thing I'm talking about. I'll mention that when we're up and running, because I think a lot of you would love it, and that's going to include spiritual conversations and things of that nature. But it's all connected to me. So whatever. Some people just want to keep it. I'm a gold bug. Talk to me about gold or forget it. I get these comments with people about Bitcoin, and that's fine. But as I've said, I don't think a lot of other people have said this either. I'm not going to get into crypto here going forward with like alternative tokens and things, the ones that I paid 500 times my money on and shared, you guys don't want that, apparently, some of you. So that's fair. This is a gold and mining newsletter, right? So there's so much opportunity here. I am so excited. So don't worry about it. But Bitcoin will always forevermore be in the discussion for gold investors. And if you or your advisor or letter writers or whatever just reject it outright and don't pay attention to the first competitor to gold in 5,000 years, hate to say it, but you're fucking stupid. It's just not wise, and it's just not wise. It's a dumb way to go about things. This is here to stay, and it should be looked at. You know, we've already seen Bitcoin take money from the gold market at times, and I think, you know, we've possibly seen the opposite now again as well recently. People like giving up and then coming to gold. They're complementary, but you know, the key is, guys, with that, the reason I bring it up is because the Bitcoin conversation that came out since Satoshi Nakamoto made it a conversation during the banking crisis of 08, 09 when it was launched, brought this topic of central banking and fractional fiat, fractional banking, reserve currencies, government currencies, paper money versus gold and real money, brought it back into new generations, a couple generations, the millennials, the Gen Z. They wouldn't have even looked at this stuff, I don't think, if it was just still our beloved gold and silver trying to have that conversation. But Bitcoin brought it back into the conversation. It's educating a lot of people about this scam out there. We should be grateful for it. Absolutely. Don't poo-poo it when it's helping people learn about how they're getting fleeced. The gold story helped us with it, and it's going to help the Bitcoin people eventually, because they're going to realize how much that Satoshi modeled Bitcoin after gold and tried to improve it. But they're, you know, the adoption curve there, you know, and the cycle and the network effect and Metcalfe's law. If you think it's going away, it's not. It's just going to grow, no matter what the news says or what anybody's talking about on MSNBC or CNBC or your local news site. You should ask your broker. Ask your brokers. It's a good test if they know what they're doing or not, or if they're an actual forward thinker that's going to do well for you and your money. I mean, it's one important question. If they're a gold person, and it's fine if they don't like Bitcoin, or if they don't, if they think it's going lower or something, but if they're not paying attention and they don't think it's relevant to pay attention for gold investors, I would fire them on the spot. Anyway, musings for Sunday done. I hope some of you enjoyed this, but Phenom resources, vanadium, these are key places to be taking a look at right now. I don't, you know, you didn't miss it. You didn't miss it. Sometimes we need these moves to kind of wake us back up, right? Maybe it is the defibrillator by just seeing like a candle with a bunch of volume and with the stuff that I put out about how powerful this metal is. Like it's crazy. The more I learn, the more I'm enamored by it. But same thing goes for, I would encourage you guys, you know, any or all of the juniors, the producers, whatever, you just got to be putting some on the books, putting some fresh cash in around these turns in the market. Two and a half year bear market, starting into a bull market. I called the bottom in October. Okay, I called the bottom in a new bull market in late October, and we saw certain stocks like on the producer side, like McEwen has already doubled. Kinross, I Am Gold, all those plays, those options that I've recommended, common stocks as well. I mean, they're up a lot. So when you go down the tube, all you got to really do is make sure that these deals, you've owned them for 5 or 10 years, as long as they didn't blow up their share structure, they have real assets and they have enough money in the bank to survive another year or two, or, you know, the CEO can raise money and has money in it themselves, you should be chipping away and adding to those positions. You're just going to do really well from here, guys. Okay. I'm going to stop the share right there, and then I'm going to stop the recording. And I hope and wish you all a great week. It's going to be an interesting one across the market. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from me again. Cheers.